And then the end of that is, if you are voting with your payment for order flow, right? That is a way of almost voting against yourself. And one of the scandals that we heard from Congress before was that, let's say that you want to buy GME at $100. And that was the price that you sent to Robinhood. Robinhood sends that information first to another high-frequency trading algorithm, and then that's essentially putting a sign out your door that says, hey,
Buyers.
yeah, I'm going to sell my GME at $100 right now. The high-frequency trading algorithm could immediately at once snipe your order by being like a small percentage of a cent higher or lower, depending on what is more favorable, or they could just bet against you and say, okay, anybody who wants that trade, I don't want it. So I can just try to bulk up my order so that there's like payment walls on either the sell or the buy side. So that's the way that, payment for order flow could always be bad. However, people like Alexis Goldstein, she specifically said that, well, what if we pay people for their information, right? Pass on the buck, or at the very least let people opt out. Do you think that that would fix payment for order flow?
Oh, well, one of the issues is volume. So any one retail individual doesn't have enough volume to make a difference at the other end. In other words, it's easy to take your information and use it to rip you off, not so easy to take your information and make money somewhere else. So you could end up paying but not getting the benefit.
Exactly. And then the question remains, well, if you don't pay, if Robinhood doesn't pay us for our data, then they're always incentivized to give us the worst access. This was proven in Congress that they had testimony when Robinhood was offline. Everyone had a better spread. And the main idea with spread is that the larger the spread is, the worse deal you're getting in like a mid-market like participation standpoint, right? It's kind of like a larger spread is like a person at the bazaar or at the flea market giving you a bad deal. So yeah. Robinhood is incentivized to be that bad flea market salesman that gives you the bad deal without any sort of payment for order flow passing on the dollar to you.
Yeah. Just to put it in perspective, you go to buy an orange and, the market price for the orange is, 50 cents. But you end up in a situation where the only offer you're getting is $3. And you pay it because that's the best deal in town. And it's just because you can't access the other prices because they're really designed for big institutions rather than retail consumers.
Exactly. And so in that sense, if you don't think that is possibly the solution, what is the future for payment for order flow in your opinion? How can we fix it, or does it just need to be abolished?
I think it's a massive issue, and it's been an issue in the markets for a long time. I used to be the chief currency strategist for one of the world's biggest investment banks and the deputy head of global strategy for UBS. And it was an issue even then that the guys on the trading floor would know, what the flow was. They would have the information about who's about to do a big transaction. And then they would use it to improve their own profitability, but at the expense of the clients. And it used to be a kind of gentleman's agreement, like how much are you allowed to rip off the client, a kind of agreed amount. But it's not really possible in a world where the retail investor is now becoming so active and so powerful. And I think that's one of the new developments. And a question I had for you is it right to say that maybe COVID has contributed to the illumination of this problem, because you have a load of gamers who are now at home and they're taking their game-averse skills and going, oh, we could apply this in the real world where there's real money at stake, right? And as they bring this skill set to bear, it raises all these questions in a way that it's never come up before, because the retail investors, they never asked these questions before. They were okay with basically getting ripped off by the system prior to this.
That's such a good question. Well, I think that's two-part. Well, first of all, people are asking who you are. Guys, I put Dr. Pippa Malmgren's information in the description. She was on the Financial Task Committee to tackle the '08 crisis, and now she's going to tackle this one with me on this show right now. Do you do interviews often, or is this one of the first few times this year that you've gone on?
No, No, I do. I do a lot of interviews, but it's mainly on like mainstream stuff. It'll be, BBC or Bloomberg or, major press. And again, one thing that kind of drew me to what you're doing is this is a whole new way of learning, of getting information. It's becoming much more popular. And like I said, I think people are trusting independent voices much more than institutional voices. And in fact, I think I put up for you, I'll put in the chat, there's the annual Edelman survey on trust. And I put it in the chat for you.
Thank you.
One of the interesting things is it shows that the two categories where trust has not deteriorated. In other words, trust is broken down in every aspect of society, every institution. But we still have trust and faith in militaries, particularly soldiers. And we still have faith and trust in private voices, private sector voices. And while there's been a big deterioration in trust of CEOs, there's still a high degree of trust in private organizations. So people still trust Apple, and they still trust someone like you, who's an independent voice with a personal opinion, who doesn't have a vested interest, they would say.
I love how this website visualizes data. So I guess I will keep this on and parse through it a little bit. But to answer your question before, is this pandemic driven? I think there's two parts. One, without the pandemic, I don't think I personally would have had any time to be a voice and hold down a full-time job for this kind of movement. So I think that, first of all, the people that are gamers that say, and they in the comments, in the live chat, they say, you get them, right? You totally are speaking on their behalf because as of right now, these people would have not had the opportunity if there wasn't this open source, like creative workflow, this creative hive mind of people coming together and learning from each other. That's the biggest part of this journey. The second part of this journey is that I think without the pandemic, I would say liquidity of certain assets, or the liquidity of certain opportunities for these hedge funds to take advantage of for their infinite stock and infinite short glitches, they wouldn't have jumped on this opportunity. If the pandemic didn't force GameStop and AMC to near bankruptcy, they also would not have jumped on this opportunity as much, right? We have seen historically that they've been shorting AMC and GME for years now, especially in the case of Melvin, from its inception. So I would say that they've been doing these tactics, but never has there been a perfect storm of getting all of these hedge funds on a more aggressive footing for taking down beloved companies and having the resources from the government that were supposed to help these hedge funds stay afloat, but gave them the tools to attack instead. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that last point is super interesting. I mean, let's face it, governments around the world have put more cash into the system than even when the financial crisis happened, right? This is bigger than the bailout. So we have a record amount of money sloshing around, and some of it's making into the hands of your audience, and some of it's making into the hands of those short selling hedge funds. And then, they come together.